Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to welcome you to Education USA Ukraine lecture. My name is Yana Ovcharenko, and I am an outreach coordinator here at Education USA Ukraine. Let me just briefly remind you that Education USA is your official source on US higher education. And we have such kind of lectures every Thursday at 6 p.m. So, my advice here is to set some reminders in your calendars, not to miss them, because they are really valuable, informative, and useful. So, our today's topic is motivation letters. I think that it's quite important, maybe one of the most important topics if we talk about US college application. And today, we are happy to be joined by Aaron Bixler, the representative of Miami University, and he is going to share his wide expertise and some valuable advice on this topic. So, Aaron, I'm going to give the word to you. Yeah, welcome. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you for finding time and being ready to share your tips with our students. It's really valuable.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit this evening for you all about writing college essays, why we do that here in the US, why that's part of our process, and then give you hopefully some tips that will make it a little bit easier to do. Um, Again, my name is Aaron Bixler. I'm the Senior Associate Director of International Enrollment at a school called Miami University in Ohio, which is a little confusing that we're in Ohio, but I'll get to that later. I've been doing this for 22 years. I've worked with international students the whole time, so hopefully I can provide some information. If not, we can look at some good pictures of the university. So we'll just go ahead and jump right in. So, like I said, the college essay is always one that trips a lot of students up. It's something that they kind of dread doing for a lot of reasons, including, they're not sure what to write about. Their students are afraid maybe that what they write's not going to be good. There's a lot of pressure, I think, self-imposed pressure by students to make sure they come up with something good. And then, of course, like we all do, a lot of students are plagued because they decide to do this at the very last minute, the night before the application is due, and that isn't conducive to good writing. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I think for international students particularly, my experience has been it's really tricky because we're asking students to talk about themselves. It's not a piece of academic writing per se. It's more a piece of personal writing, and that can throw students off. Um, and also, I think there is that pressure about am I going to write something good that's going to help or isn't going to help me with the application? And I think it's important to remember that a good essay that you put together is probably more likely to help you than a bad one is to harm you. So think of it that way. Like everything you do kind of with an essay is going to be a plus with your application. How important is the essay? Well, like everything with US higher education, it can depend, right? It's going to depend on you as a student, and it's going to depend on the schools that you want to go to, the schools that you're applying to. For you as a student, it's going to be probably more important if you're kind of a middle of the road student, right? Like if you're kind of stretching to be admitted to some of these really highly competitive universities and you don't have perfect grades, you don't have perfect test scores, the essay is really something that can help separate you, help you stand out. If you've already got all of those things, if you're stellar academic credentials, it may not be as important because the universities are going to want strong students. And if you're that strong student already, a solid essay is really just checking the box. But if you think you might be on the fence, it can make a difference, and that's why I'll talk about that a little bit today. And kind of similarly, how selective the institution is. At Miami University, where we admit over half of our applicants here. Internationally, it's more like 22%, but it's not one of these universities that you read about that everyone frets about that has 5, 6, 7% admission rate. So for us, we do read every single essay. We do look at them. We it does help students who may be a little more borderline, but at these super selective schools where everyone who applies is already really smart, already has really great test scores, really high English proficiency scores, that essay can be a way that they can use to differentiate students. And it can be a way that they can also determine who gets scholarships. So I think that's an important piece of it as well. And like I said, it's can really be a good essay can really be a plus in your favor. If it's But it's probably not going to be the only thing that's going to decide whether or not a student is admitted to a university. So with that said, we know it can be important, especially for more selective schools. It can be important, for scholarships. So the question then is, how do I write a good essay? Fair enough. So we'll get into that a little bit. The first thing you really need to do is look at the prompt. What the prompt is, kind of the thing at the top of the page that they're going to ask you what you want to write, what they want you to write about. So what are you being asked to write? So you want to address that prompt. And I put a few here. We'll go through them really quickly. There's a bunch of them. And they're basically some sample prompts just to show you a little bit about the wide variety that are out there. Most of these are from the Common Application, but there are some I pulled from specific universities that are a little more unique. They're kind of fun. So I threw those in there as well. These are older ones, so they may not be exactly what you see on the Common Application if you open it today, but they don't change a lot from year to year. So this is one that I see a lot of. Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful, they believe their application would be incomplete without it. So if that sounds like you, then share your story. So, you'll see a theme here, a chance to write something personal about yourself. Or similarly, lessons we take from obstacles we encounter, they can be fundamental to later success. So recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure, and how it affected you and what you learned from experience. Again, asking for a personal story about yourself, not a piece of academic writing. Similarly, kind of asking about you as an individual, reflect on a time where you questioned or challenged a belief or idea and what prompted your thinking and what was the outcome. And again, these are all Common Application essays. For most schools, you're going to have to do one of these only. So it's not like you have to write 4 essays. It's just the one. And you have some leeway, as you can see, on what you select to write about. This one, describe a problem you've solved or a problem you'd like to solve. It can be an intellectual challenge, research query, or ethical dilemma. Anything that is of personal importance, no matter the scale. So again, you can see asking about that personal side of things. Explain its significance to you and what steps you took or could be taken to identify a solution. Another personal, and this one's a little more tough, I think, for students to write about themselves. Students don't want to sound like they're bragging. So you discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth or a new understanding of yourself. So you can start to see definitely a theme evolving. Describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? And then this is an old stat, but almost a quarter of students who use the Common App 7-8 years ago used this one, which is basically you can write about a topic of your choice, anything that you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. A lot of students use this, but I will caution, like I've had students kind of copy and paste an academic paper, like a research paper in here, and that doesn't go well. Even though it's an essay of your choice, it should still be a personal essay. These are a few from schools we may have heard of. University of Notre Dame, is something that's related to them and to their mission. The founder of the Congregation of the Holy Cross described education as the art of helping young people to completeness. How are you incomplete? So these are more selective schools, kind of angling for specific insights. Kalamazoo College in the state of Michigan, what invention would the world be better off without, and why? A little bit of a different take on a question. What's the greatest invention of all time? What's the worst invention, basically, is what it's asking. The University of Chicago, very competitive school. The subject of food is never far from our minds in college admissions. Compose an essay about a memorable meal you've eaten. We are especially interested in the details, the occasion, your company at the meal, the physical setting, the kinds of food you ate, or their preparation. That's an interesting one. I think there's a lot, it gets a little deeper than a meal. They want to know kind of the subtext of all of that. This is kind of more another University of Chicago. Like there's a Where is Waldo books, which are used to be very popular with kids. So Where is Waldo really? It's kind of a funny one. University of Richmond, their mascot is the spiders. So they want you to tell them about spiders, which is also kind of unique to them. I don't know what you would write about that, but it's on one of their options. This is one of my favorite ones. You've just finished your 300-page autobiography. Please submit page 217. So if your life is 300 pages long, where are you 2/3 of the way through? Where do you want to be? Where do you think you'll be? That sort of thing. And that's from the University of Pennsylvania and the city of Philadelphia. And then this one from Princeton is from a current student. Who was a student at the time. It's culture is what presents us with the kinds of valuable things that can fill a life. And insofar as we can recognize the value in those things and make them part of our lives are meaningful. And you're supposed to use that as a starting point and write about someone, something that helped define one of your values. So that's a little more involved as well. So anyway, so those are just some sample prompts. And they're really covered a wide range. And I think in general, the essay prompt can reveal a lot about what the schools are looking for. Do they want to just see how well you can write? I mean, I think they all want to see that, but some may be more concerned about that. Maybe they want a piece that spotlights your ability to be creative. I think there's a lot of that in those. How creative are you? How are you a creative thinker? Do you think differently? Or how do you get an idea of your intellectual prowess? So that's they get a lot of that with your other your application materials, but I think that's another thing that they're looking for with the essay. Moving on. So you've got the prompts, kind of select one. Now you need to get a topic about your essay. So this is really the most important step, and this is what we'll probably spend the most amount of time on. So basically it can be a brainstorming idea where you just try to throw a lot of ideas out there and see what's good. And both of these in the boxes here are things that are similar, but two ways to go about trying to come up with a topic. What's a story so central to me that in my identity that I can't imagine not telling? And you'll kind of hear that theme a lot through the rest of the presentation. What do we need to know about you that you definitely want to tell us? If you're writing a book about your life, what would be the one story you absolutely have to include? So, story that's so central. Well, one thing you'd have to tell us if you sat down with us in person. So again, like a lot of the prompts suggested, we want to see a personal story, not necessarily an academic writer. And if it can be unique, all the better. And should something about your character and values should also be included in that. And a lot of students will write show things that are tragic or sad stories about themselves, and that's okay if that's a central part of your life, but it doesn't have to be a tragic event. It can be an uplifting one. It can be a tale of success. So it doesn't have to be tragic, but something to keep in mind. Now, this is a slide. I was asked recently to provide one slide to a group of prospective students that I think would help them with their university search. And this is the one that I chose because it really is the two paths you select when going for a topic. So either you choose a creative and unique topic, like a super creative and unique topic, and you write a really good essay about it. If you choose a topic that's a little more common, then the pressure goes on you to write a super creative and unique essay. So creative and unique topic with a good essay, good topic with a creative and unique essay. So creativity and unique has to be in there somewhere. I suppose if you did a creative and unique topic and then a super creative and unique essay, that would be a double winner. But that's kind of the paths that you can select when kind of going through the essay process. So you've got your topic, and then there are basically four components to an essay: the title, the hook, the focus, and the authentic voice, which is kind of pervades throughout the essay. So your title, obviously a creative one was going to grab my attention. I read, a couple thousand of these a year, and I don't read as many as some folks. So a creative title certainly gets my attention. It can be short and personal. It doesn't, like I said before, it doesn't have to be like a research paper. It's going to make me want to create some mystery, create some anticipation, and read a little bit more. That's kind of the most important thing. And then the hook is how you start the essay, right? That's going to be, okay, I read the title, say, okay, I'm intrigued. And so then I read the first sentence or two, and that's the hook. That's your attention getter. And that's that engaging first sentence or two that's going to pull me in and make me want to read more. Like, there's a lot of bad hooks out there that you want to try to avoid. A lot of essays start with quotes from a famous person. Let's not do that. A lot of essays start with, something about, the dictionary defines this word as thus. That's something we want to try to avoid as well. A good hook is going to be unique. It's going to create a sense of intrigue, and it's going to make you likable and make me want to read more again. That's really, really the point. Hook, just like fishing, as you can see from the slide, got a little fish on there. So then the focus. So this is the meat of the essay, right? This is what it's about. Admission essays in general are not long. They're about a page. And so everything you write has to have some relevance to the title, to the hook. It all has to kind of be connected. So if you try to tell us everything in one essay, it's going to really get long-winded, and you're not going to end up telling us anything. So just tell us something, one thing. Focus on one value, one story, one example. It's kind of like what I'd said a few minutes ago. What's the one story that's so central to your identity? What's the one thing you would actually have to include in a book about your life? What do you want us to think about? Think as soon as we finish the essay, this person is what, right? Like, what do you want us to walk away with? And the authentic voice is really kind of something that pervades. And I've read, and I really need to update this slide a little bit, because I've read a lot of AI generated, ChatGPT generated essays over the past year or two, and they're noticeable. You think we don't know, but we do. So it needs to sound like something you would actually say or write. It has to have a tone that's consistent, and be an honest writer. You don't need to make things up. You don't need to lie in your essay. Your own life and experiences are more than enough to write a good essay. Don't use big words just to try to impress us. Don't write jargon and other things that you might not understand, but you think looks good. I think with the AI ones too, they're just so vague, right? It's not a personal story. It's all kind of boilerplate stuff that doesn't tell us anything. It just kind of is just there. It just takes up space. So, okay, so the pieces of the essay. So how do you get started? And some other tips. So like I said, the common application essay limit is about 650 words. Similarly, most universities are going to have similar limits. And so just make sure that you follow those. And that's going to really require you to be thoughtful in what you put into the essay, because you're not going to have a lot of time or space to write things. So this Tom Romano is a Miami professor who is a writing professor, and he had some suggestions for students. Think about it as creating mind pictures, where you're trying to paint a picture with words to make us feel like we're there, to make us feel like we're really can see the story. And this goes back to what I said too. If you were to sit down with me and you wanted to tell me, you had 5 minutes that we were sitting here, and you say, "Tell me about yourself." What would you say? What would be? Tell me the most important thing about yourself. What is that? That's a really good place to start for a topic. Um, I would encourage something like that. And then on the flip side of that, once you write your first draft of your essay and you've got stuff that's in there that's not central to that one story, get rid of it. It's if it, you don't want to clutter. It's such a short piece of work. You don't want to clutter it with unnecessary things. Those unnecessary words and long-winded passages can really get into your writing, and then they can really make a good essay pretty average. And Dr. Romano calls that weeding the garden, which I get that. That's a pretty good metaphor for that. I'll give him that one. So speaking of that, it's really about, and this is where the procrastination comes in that I talked about at the very beginning. It's really about writing something, reviewing it, editing it, reviewing it again, editing it again, asking an advisor or a teacher or an English professor or someone who can help you to do the same, not to write it for you, but to edit it, give some suggestions, having a friend look at it, give you some suggestions, getting as much input, as you possibly can. And that's a process that can take some time. And so you want to give yourself plenty of time for that. But I'm a big, someone who's guilty of kind of writing things once and then calling it done, which is not the way to do it. You need to really go back and review and edit. And when I do that, I find that my writing is improved greatly, and that holds true for the essays as well. So basically, that's the 20-minute version on how to write a college essay. But you want to write something, a conclusion at the end that's going to really make us wanting more and make us wanting to meet you and know you, and that's the goal. And I think if you follow those steps, being mindful of that hook, being mindful of the focus and being focused and staying in that authentic voice, those are really the steps to do that. So you just gotta get started. We're not looking for perfection. I think that's sometimes where students get a little paralysis. This is from Pomona College in California. Pomona is not looking for 17 and 18-year-olds to be perfect. We're looking to see the person who's doing the writing, right? Like, we want to know more about you and let your guard down a little bit, just to let us see who you are and what makes you tick. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. If it's too perfect, that's when we start to suspect you probably had AI writing in it. So that's kind of my tips on essay writing. If it's okay, I'm gonna spend maybe about 10 minutes just talking a little bit about our university and what we have to offer. And then we can hopefully have some time for some questions as well. So again, my name is Aaron Bixler. I'm from Miami University in Ohio. You can see from the map there, we are not in Florida. And we're in a town called Oxford, which is also confusing. We're not in the UK. We're in Oxford, Ohio, which is outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, about an hour by car from Cincinnati. So that's the primary airport that we use. Pretty close to a lot of major metro areas in the Midwestern Great Lakes part of the U.S. I think by U.S. standards, Oxford is a safe place to live, and it's also an inexpensive place to live. So I think we get a lot of positive feedback from our students on those two things about living in Oxford. At the same time, even though there's only 10,000 people like me that actually live in Oxford year-round, we have over 18,000 students here as well. So when school's in session, Oxford's got about 30,000 people, and they come from almost every U.S. state in almost 100 different countries. So we kind of bring the world out here to rural Ohio, which is great. Most of those 18,000 students are bachelor's degree students. So that's really our focus, about 16,500 bachelor's degree students, and then about 2,500, 2,000-ish master's and PhD students. So most students that come here, they're coming for their first university degree, for their bachelor's degree. In Miami, you'll see this a lot. I like to talk about this as well because you'll see this a lot on our website and like in our publications. This original public Ivy badge, and people are like, what's that mean? Are you in the Ivy League? No, the Ivy League are 8 private universities on the East Coast of the US. But a number of years ago, there was an influential book that was written that listed 8 public universities that offered what they considered an Ivy League level experience at a public university price. And Miami was one of those 8 original public Ivies, along with schools like University of California at Berkeley, University of Virginia, University of Michigan, places William and Mary, schools like that. So it's something we're proud of. So you'll see that on a lot of our things. So it does. What does that mean for you? Well, it means that you get a real personal and focused undergraduate experience. Our professors, they come to Miami University to work, my friends and neighbors, because they love to teach undergraduate students. Sure, they do research, but they're really here to teach bachelor's degree students, and we've been recognized for that as being one of the top public universities in the U.S. for undergraduate teaching for like the past 10 years or so. So it's something again that we're proud of. A couple of other things I like to talk about also are, I think, things that Miami does really well. It's maybe a little bit different from other schools, but also what I think makes U.S. higher education in general stand out from other things you may be considering. It may be different than what you would find in the UK or Australia or anything like that. And flexibility is a huge part of what we promote. It's a huge part of the US higher education system. I think it's a strength of it, actually. Over half of our students will do a double major or a major and at least one minor. And we're still in the top 12 public universities for a 4-year graduation rate. So they're doing this and they're still finishing in 4 years. So, you can't do this everywhere, but in a lot of places, like in Miami, for example, if you want to be a psychology major, but you also want to study computer science, you can do both of those things. Your parents say you have to be a software engineering major, but you like theater as well. You can do a double major in engineering and theater, or, minor is like half a major. And so it's a great way that you can combine interests. They don't have to be even obviously connected, but they can be. And you can really pursue multiple interests at the same time. And we really encourage that, and over half of our students will take advantage of that. Similarly, we have about 30 different programs where in 5 or less years, you can earn both a bachelor's and a master's degree. So it allows you to start your master's study while you're still finishing your bachelor's degree. So it's going to save you at minimum a year of your time and a year of tuition dollars as well. Popular options for this would be computer science. You can get a bachelor's and master's simultaneously in that. Statistics, accountancy is a big one. Environmental science, I just had a meeting with them the other day. They're really big on working with students to get both degrees in a timely fashion. So 4 or 5 years, you get out of here with both a bachelor's and a master's degree. And that's another thing that we encourage. Again, a way to combine interests, and a way to really kind of go further in depth in a reasonable amount of time. Honors programs, I think U.S. universities do a really good job with these as well. Miami has a honors college that's a residential experience, and it's for about 500-ish of our students each year start in the honors college. So about 500 students are selected for honors of our new freshman students out of about 4,500 freshmen each year. And they have honors housing. They have access to honors sections of courses. They have access to registering for courses first, which they really like. And there's a few other things too, but those are probably the big one. Honors advising is another big one. And the Presidential Fellows Program, which I'll talk about in a minute, is a part of that honors college, and that's a part of our scholarship program. We just switched to an honors college model and just a few years ago, really, and we've already been moved up to being the number 6 rated honors college in the US. So the folks running that have done a fantastic job, and it's gotten to be extraordinarily popular. Another thing I think U.S. universities do quite well are internships, learning by doing, so practical experience. So we've been rated in the top 10 best schools for internships as well. We don't require internships or co-ops, but about 70% of our students will do at least one internship or a practical experience. And those are great resume builders for when you graduate and you're looking for that first job. And our international students do internships also. We actually have someone in our college in our career services office, whose primary job is to assist international students with employment and internship opportunities while they're here, and then once they graduate. So we have a special focus just on helping our international students get those opportunities as well. U.S. universities also do a fantastic job with the out-of-class experience. So you're in class about 15, 16 hours a week in the U.S. You probably need to study twice that, so 30 hours a week of studying, hopefully. So that's about 45 hours. So that gives you some time to do other things. And so we have 600 different student organizations that you can participate in when you're not in class. And they can be sports related, they can be social service, social justice related, they can be purely social, they can be a lot of volunteer opportunities, they can environmental, really about anything. With 600 organizations, there's something for everyone. And I should point out too, out of those 18,000 folks that we have at school here, we're a residential school, so almost all of our students either live on campus or they live within a mile, so let's say 2 kilometers of campus. So at night, on weekends, there's still a lot of students around. It's not like a place that clears out at at the end of the day. There's always students around, throughout the day and then throughout the week too. It's a great opportunity to get involved in those organizations. But at the end of the day, you do go to school to get a degree, and you go to school to have a major, have a field of study. So at Miami, we have 5 academic divisions where our students can study, and they usually can pick one. Although if they have a double major, they can be in more than one. Our College of Arts and Science is our biggest division, and that's where you're going to find things like, psychology, political science, the biosciences. Those are kind of the big ones there. Our Farmer School of Business. It's not about farming. I always make a joke there. No one laughs at it, but I refuse to remove it. It's named after a guy named Mr. Farmer. So that's our most competitive division. And popular options for international students would be finance, management, but also newer ones. Entrepreneurship's really taken off. Real estate is a new one that's taken off. Business analytics has really gotten big because it's considered a STEM major. So that's that one. Our smallest division is our College of Creative Arts. So we have traditional art programs, art, music, theater, but also architecture. Computer game design is in our Creative Arts division, and as is design. Our College of Education is where we have our teacher training programs. We also have like athletic training, social work, exercise science, sports management is in that one. So that's another division that's has some newer programs that have really taken off. And then I think I'm to the last one, our by far most popular division for our international students, our College of Engineering and Computing. Mechanical engineering is our biggest engineering major. Bioengineering is our fastest growing one, but far and away, computer science is our most popular major for international students. Regardless of your major, I get a lot of questions. Oh, I don't know if I want to go to school in Ohio. It's out there in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to live in Ohio the rest of my life. Fair enough. But our students, when they graduate, they go everywhere. And you can see this is for some of our international students have found jobs in recent years, everywhere across from coast to coast in the United States, throughout Europe, South Asia, even into South America and Africa. So now, some bad news and some good news. As we know, U.S. higher education is expensive, and that's not a secret. Miami is a public school, so we have 2 rates of tuition, as most public schools do. One for people who are residents of our state, and one for people who are not. So if you're from Chicago, Illinois, or from Kiev, it's the same rate, right? There's not an international rate, but there's an Ohio rate and a non-Ohio resident rate. And the full cost of attendance, all in, housing, books, estimated costs for travel, health insurance, as well as the tuition and fees, is about $66,000 per year, which is a big number for sure. The good news is we do have ways to decrease those costs for our international students. And as a public school, we're happy to have a variety of merit-based scholarships that can help with that. The 2 on the left there, the International Education Scholarship and the University Merit Scholarship, are the most common ones. The international they're both for international students, are eligible for consideration. There's no separate application. You apply for admission and you're automatically considered. About 99% of our students will receive at least one of these awards, but they're partial awards. So there'll be scholarships. Our average scholarship this past year was about $16,000 US. So it takes a chunk out of it, but it still certainly leaves a lot that needs to be considered. So it's average though. So we had students that had, in excess of, combining these scholarships, I should say that they can be stacked, in excess of, $30,000, and then some students who had maybe $6,000 or $8,000 in scholarships. So 15-ish was 16 was the average. Again, automatic consideration for those. The two on the right are a little more competitive and they're a little more generous though. The You Are Welcome Here scholarship is the only one that has a separate application, something we've done since they started this award. We were one of the original schools that started offering it, and that pays for 50% of tuition. And it can be combined with the other two, International Education Scholarship and Merit Scholarship, to increase a student's overall scholarship award. And then the big one, the Presidential Fellows Program. You apply to the honors program by December 1st, you can be considered for this. This is the full scholarship program. It covers all tuition and fees, all room and board. So you're really only, and it even provides a stipend. So you're only responsible basically for getting yourself here. And as you can imagine, being that generous, it's very, very competitive. So we have a couple thousand students, international students, that apply for it. Typically 3 or 4 students will receive it, be awarded internationally. Overall, it's about 15 to 25 per year, depending on how well we do and guessing who's going to accept it and who isn't. So that's the big one. It's really for outstanding students. We had 2 international students this year receive it. One was from Armenia, one was from Romania, I believe. In the past, we've had students from India enroll on it. We've had students from Kazakhstan enroll on it. So a little bit of everything. We've offered it. We've had students from Vietnam. So we had students from all over. Again, competitive, but it is that one full scholarship opportunity. The main thing really is just to make sure you've got that application complete by that December 1st deadline, because they're sticklers for that specific scholarship. The university merit scholarships are guaranteed. And so what we'll do is we'll count an equivalent US GPA out of your 10-point scale and put it on a 4.0 scale. And we guarantee scholarships starting in these ranges based on the equivalent US GPA. Again, this is just for those university merit scholarships. The other ones can be added onto this as well. And then also, kind of the last thing related to costs, we don't increase costs for students once they're here. So you know that when you enroll with a 50% scholarship, let's say, it's still going to be a 50% scholarship, 4 years from now when you graduate, because we're not going to increase scholarship or tuition costs or room and board costs for students once they enroll. So we call it the tuition promise. It does provide a lot of predictability to students. It certainly can't guard against currency fluctuations, but at least on our end, we're not going to raise rates on students once they start. So we think overall, that it is an investment for sure, but there's a great return on it. Our students go out there and they really do some great things. And with that, I'll wrap it up and be happy to answer any questions either about the university or about writing essays or whatever we want to talk about here for the next couple of minutes.
Aaron, thank you for such a great presentation. I hope that you can hear me because sometimes there are problems with my mic. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your expertise and advice. We really appreciate it. And I'm 100% sure that it was really valuable for our students. Thank you. Yeah, so guys, now it's time for your questions. I know that we are streaming for different platforms. I promise you to read all questions, to check all platforms and to deliver your questions. So do not hesitate, drop your questions in the chat. It's kind of like a unique opportunity to talk with a person who has read thousands essays. So
22
yeah.
years worth.
Yeah. Or if you have any questions about Miami University, please go ahead. Yeah. But yeah, I see the one question from Lesia. Have you ever had
Mhm.
any students from Ukraine? We just had that talk, personal talk before the lecture, but yeah, I hope that Aaron can answer it.
Sure. Unfortunately, not as many as I would like. We I think we have a couple of one or two students currently enrolled um, that have maybe been here for a couple of years now. I don't think we've had anyone new recently. It's certainly something we'd be love to see more of for sure. Um, we've had we've had students from other parts of Europe certainly every year, but I have a student from I think a new student who started this year from Poland. Um, but yeah, so yeah, a couple I guess is the short answer.
Yeah, and maybe next year it will be more.
I hope
Maybe
so.
some students who are watching our lecture now and are not scared of competitiveness are going to apply to Miami University, and maybe next year, this time, we will know about a couple Ukrainians.
I hope
As,
so.
yeah, thank
Mhm.
you. Okay.
I would.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah,
What
go ahead.
one thing I didn't mention, and this has been a positive way we've enrolled students from, like, let's say I think our student from Poland, for example, or at least one of them, um, is that we are a Division 1 institution as well. So we do have athletic scholarships for really strong student athletes. So we've had students enroll that way, and it's a great financial um, benefit to those students, particularly in things like women's tennis or track and field or swimming and diving are big ones where we see a lot of international student interest.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. We have a question from Marina.
Okay.
So that's a long one. If I write through metaphors and imagery, how can I recognize the line where the text becomes too literally and stops being clear for the admission committee?
That's a great question. And that's very subjective, I think. I think that's where you really need to lean into having people you trust read it after you write it and give some good feedback on it and say, okay, this is where um, it becomes unclear, or this is where it stops becoming a personal story and becomes more of a very kind of detached piece of art versus a personal story. So to answer that question, I think you would have to, get some feedback from people you trust, and they should be able to help with that.
Yeah, and I just want to add that you can always rely on Education USA Ukraine team, and you can sign up for the consultation on checking your essay. So if you go to our website, there is kind of like a page, sign up for the consultation. Then you go to the selection of topics for the consultation. If you choose the motivation letter, yeah, it means that we are going to check it and provide you with feedback from us. So yeah, if you need any feedback, please reach out to EdUSA.
Yeah, it's a great
So
service. I didn't know that you all did that. That's fantastic.
yeah, we are happy to help with that part of application process. But remember about deadlines, guys. So please do not send your motivations essays 2 days before the deadline. We are not going to check them. So at least 3 days before, okay? Let's make a deal here. Okay, I have a question in Instagram and I'm going to read it aloud. So, how do admissions committees view gap year students, and how can I best present mine as a period of deliberate growth? I hope that it's
Mm.
clear.
Run that. Can you say that again? I want to make sure I understood it.
Yeah, so how do admissions committees view gap year students?
Oh,
And
okay.
how can I present mine as a period of deliberate growth?
Great question. So gap year has become, I think, more common in the U.S. as well, especially in the past 5 years. I think with when the kind of the pandemic started, a lot of folks took a year off, and you saw a lot of people postpone their higher education while we sort of saw what was going to happen there. So it's something that we're pretty familiar with. I would say with international students that I work with, I see it a lot. A lot of times students want to graduate from school and then take a year to prepare and take entrance exams, SAT, TOEFL, that sort of thing. So it's not uncommon. It's not looked poorly upon, I wouldn't think. I think if you can use, there's a couple of things. Like in the common application, you could use that essay to write about what you did in the gap year and how that have changed you or affected you as a person. That's a great place to do that. And the common application also has a spot where it's like, tell us anything else you want us to know. And you can say, hey, I took a gap year from X to Y and did these things. So if you really wanted to make it an integral part of your story, I would use the essay as a possible way to do that. Or if you just want to let us know that you were gone for a year and you did something, you can do it in the little section of, well, so if you want to make it sound, not make it sound, if you want to talk about the growth that you had during that year, the essay would be a great place to do that.
And can we just make clear for our students that taking a gap year is not a weakness? Because I know that many Ukrainian students kind of like a little bit afraid of admission committee considers, kind of like gap year as a weakness. But I always tell, no, it's not.
Yeah, you're correct. It's not, in my experience, it's not been. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, so it's absolutely okay, guys. Do not be afraid of taking gap year and then talking about it. Okay, next question is from Arina. The style of essays in the US is very different from Ukrainian writing traditions. What elements in international students' essays most often sounds non-American and weaken the impression?
I think that's a great question. And I think it's because in other countries, for example, like I was talking about, we're looking for kind of a personal essay, but in other countries, it can be more of a statement of purpose. Like, tell us why you want to come here and what you want to study. And so when I see those, they are non-American, because that's not how American kids write their essay. They write it or they're supposed to write it as a personal statement. I see a lot of students who will write things, this is my name. I want to go to X university to study mechanical engineering, and this is why I want to study mechanical engineering. And if that's a part of your personal story, a lot of students want to get into medicine because of maybe a personal event in their life, for example. But if you're just trying to convince me why you want to get into the mechanical engineering program, that is kind of a giveaway. The other one I think I see a lot of are students who, and not necessarily from Ukraine or Europe even, but from countries where it can be challenging to get a student visa. They write the essay as if they're trying to convince me that they should get a student visa, which is great, but I can't help you with that, unfortunately. So they're saying, I want to study this and come back to my country and start a business and, work for my father's roofing company or whatever, which is great. It's great to have a plan, but the essay is not the place for that. So yeah, when you veer from the personal to more of a rote explanation for what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, that's the giveaway for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on this. Okay, let me check our Instagram. Let me check our chat. For now, I do not see any other questions. So I think that we can close our lecture for today. So again, Aaron, thank you for your time. Thank you for your answers. We really appreciate it. And it was really big pleasure to have you as our guest speaker. And thank you, our dear students, for your engagement, for your thoughtful questions. We wish you inspiration and confidence as you draft your own unique creative essays. And I hope to see you at our upcoming Education USA lectures. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.